Okay, everybody. Happy you can join us. This is the second installation of the International Day of Badges. This is our America session. We had a fantastic call this morning with folks in Europe, and we hope you can also join us tonight. I say tonight for our time, but in, let's see, 8 hours from now, we'll be joining our Australian friends, so we hope you can join us for that too. Okay, so we're joined today by Leslie Voigt at Madison College. She'll be presenting first. Then we have Mike Guzward and Adam Nemiroff from Dartmouth College. And then we have John Foster from NOCTI, who is presenting badges in the workplace. This call is being recorded and we'll have links to it. We encourage you to participate on Chatter as well as the chat function. If you look in the bottom of your screen, there is chat. Everybody has been muted by default, and that is to keep sanity with this many people connected up synchronously. But that being said, we are going to keep an active log within the chat function, so I encourage you to participate that way. Without further ado, Leslie, let's get you going, and let me unmute you real quick here. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm going to share my screen out. Everybody see that okay?
Perfect.
Perfect. Okay. So Madison College School of Professional and Continuing Education has been utilizing digital badges since 2012. To date, we have created about 40 individual badges, but have issued over 600 badges, and that number continues to grow almost daily. By the end of the 2015-2016 school year, so by June, we anticipate adding at least another 40 individual badges. So the number of badges issued will increase exponentially. The reason we're adding so many is we've brought on our business and industry classes and curriculum. So we're really increasing what we're doing here. For these badges, we've developed brand standards and rigorous educational standards that are aligned to each badge that we create. This includes some form of assessment that must be made to determine whether or not an individual successfully earns their badge. What you're looking at on the screen right now is kind of a sampling of the badges that we offer. These are currently just our professional development courses. Again, we're a non-credit part of the institution. So we're only badging our professional development courses and now getting into our business and industry courses as well. Additionally, we've entered into a partnership with Cleary Building Corporation. They're a nationwide construction company that's headquartered just outside of Madison, Wisconsin. In July of 2015, we partnered with them to badge their in-house training. Cleary already offers a robust training experience for their employees, so they really don't have a need for us to train them. But what they didn't have was an effective way to efficiently track and showcase their training. So we found many ways to work with them. We're currently only using their sales training. They do offer additional training as well. In the scenario that we set up with them, we have verified the curriculum that they're using to make sure that it fits our standards of assessment. So we did check over the curriculum. We make sure that they're doing assessment because our name is attached to these badges as well. Then we developed and now issue the digital badges for their sales staff that moves through this training. They tell us when someone has successfully completed their training requirements, and then we issue the badges. After an initial training of their instructors, Cleary has now taken a very active role in training their sales staff to create their Acclaim, which is the platform that we utilize, their accounts, and to accept and share out their digital badges. They have come to realize that the success of the project depends as much on them as it does on us. And they're really, really excited about the aspect that social media benefits of these digital badges. So in return for us allowing them to use our digital badging site, they have agreed to essentially kick the tires of our digital badge system and provide us with feedback on how well this works for their industry needs. We've been utilizing this for education, but this is our first true partnership with the workforce. So we are hosting monthly meetings with them to touch base and brainstorm on how these ideas are working and to help with the acceptance rates. I've also developed a pre/post survey. You're looking at some of the pre-survey results on the screen to help gather data directly from their Salesforce staff. And we are in the midst of developing a white paper in conjunction with the Cleary Building Corporation. Some of the badges that you're looking at here are at the bottom, across the screen on the bottom are their classes And the badge itself, you can see, kind of gets darker as the class gains more importance. And then the badge on the top is an instructor badge. We found that issuing instructor badges has been really essential to the acceptance rate of our badges, whether it be workforce or professional development, because once the instructor has that badge, they become a frontline support to their students to help them navigate within the system and to show them how to share out their badges. Additionally, with our classes, our instructors generally already have a social media network. They already have LinkedIn accounts. So they kind of get the word out initially and then help the students with that as well. I'm going to provide our contact information here. I'm sure James is handing that out as well, or it's attached to this also. But we've been utilizing this system for 2 years now. We've been utilizing Pearson Acclaim and have been really happy with it. They respond to our needs when they can, as soon as they can. They do a really great job. And we are currently branching out, as I said, into business and industry. We are also looking at adding in assessment data right into the badge system. That's something that we'll be piloting this spring, summer, fall as we begin to roll out and beta test that. I know we're on a time limit here. I don't want to go over. How are we doing, James? Okay. We're also badging our certificate programs. So as I said, we do non-credit, and our certificates are not transcripted currently at this time. So our digital badges are offering a way to transcript informally, but digitally, the classes that are being offered. We have our student base is generally already has a post-secondary degree, and they're all extremely excited about using these badges, earning them, and sharing them out with their friends. It has indirectly had a marketing effect on our classes. Once these badges get posted, our classes fill. We have waiting lists for some of our classes based on simply the addition of a badge being posted to social media. So for us being a cost recovery department, it's had a huge impact in the type of marketing that we do, or the type of marketing that we didn't know was going to come from this, or was a happy side effect for us. So we've had great success with these, and we look forward to taking this on in the future.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, we are going to quickly change gears. And next up, we are going to hear from Mike Guzward and Adam Nemiroff from Dartmouth College. So let me unmute you real quick. All right, Adam.
Can you hear us? Let me just switch to sharing my screen. Oop. Can we see the slides? Good. Okay, so hello. We're joining from Dartmouth College. I'm Adam Nemiroff. I'm an instructional designer at Dartmouth College.
And I'm Mike Goudsward, another instructional designer here at Dartmouth.
And I'm working on OperaX, a MOOC that we're doing with edX.org as an introduction to Italian opera. And I'm going to give a shout out to James for thanking us to refine this idea as we were going through it in the late stages of launching the course. We're in week 6 of the course right now. So unfortunately, some of these ideas are still in development as we're thinking about how it's working. So our MOOC, which is offered on edX, we have 5 learning objectives that we were playing around with in the course. The first 4 are all tied to students' familiarity with the history of Italian opera, how people listen to Italian opera and analyze the drama of those moments when there's musical things happening. And what we were really trying to think about is, beyond these kind of more easily assessed skills, how can we give students feedback about how they're doing with the last one, which is thinking about the opera in the global community kind of aspect. So we had 2 goals. We want students to be able to share their evidence outside the course. So we want them to be able to talk about some of these skills that they're developing with connecting with the opera community. We also wanted to give them multiple opportunities to measure against these things. So we, at the last minute, decided to add in this extra element of using badges in the course. We thought we were the first edX course to do it, but there's some friends from ANU X who have been doing this as well. So to show you what this looks like, we created a constellation of badges that are stackable based around the things that we were looking for students to engage with in the community aspect of the course. So we have the Learning Composer stacked badge, the Opera Community Organizer stacked badge, and the Opera Patron stacked badge. Under each of those stacked badges, we have the stackable sub badges, and those are tied to key evidence that students could provide to help us to know that they were able to do those things. We've had 79 stackable badges issued. Did we have one so far for the stacked badge?
Yeah, I think we've issued 2 Opera Patron badges for people who've earned both the Hangout and the discussion.
And
stackable badge.
And if people are interested in checking out the badge site that we've set up, we used WordPress with the BadgeOS platform set up on through Credly, which Mike can talk a little bit more about, and that's accessible from that dbadge.link/OperaX.
We'll also include a link at the end of this presentation to a recipe we wrote up about the ingredients into this badge ecosystem that's tied to the MOOC and how you might set it up if you're doing a similar project.
So when a student, we've been trying to prompt students with opportunities where they can earn badges in the course. This is an example from one of our first Google Hangouts. What we've been telling students is, hey, there's this thing that we're doing, ask a question during the Google Hangout, and you can get a stackable badge that will help you towards your Opera Patron badge. So this is an example of what that looks like in the edX platform. We also include links and directions for how they'll do that at that point.
Yeah, so one of the questions is, would anybody be interested in these badges because they're not tied to the grading or the certificate that a student earns in the course? From that number of 79 stackable badges. And then we've also started recognizing names of people who go for every single badge. So they're very excited about the course, about opera, and really looking to engage socially and earn all the badges right away.
So Mike, do you want to give a walk through the platform?
Sure. So as Adam mentioned, we were sort of rapidly developing and deploying this in the week or so before the MOOC was launched. And James and Dan Hickey were really helpful in being a sounding board and giving some feedback on our constellation design and thinking about what badges we offer and what activity in the course we were going to support with badges, and then what the evidence for that would be. So we were really looking for student-submitted evidence because we figured at a scale of a MOOC, we wouldn't have much time to go hunting for nominations. I think in an early design meeting, we said, let's just issue 3 badges. And as you saw in the earlier constellation, we ended up with 3 badges and then many stackable badges. And that was a way to support different sorts of activity in the MOOC and also have really definitive evidence for each one of them. So this is a WordPress site. Some of you are probably familiar with BadgeOS. It's a plugin. Most of it's free. There's a few pay-for add-ons. We have the badge leaderboard, which was a premium feature, but it works well, and the relationships between stackable badges and other badges are easy to define in the platform.
So when a student goes to actually submit the evidence for one of these stackable badges, they'll click on the specific stackable badge and they'll submit their evidence for that. At that point, it queues up a workflow for us to go in and review it. And this is what it looks like. Students can either do a text entry, so if they're bringing in discussion posts or questions from Hangouts, they could either paste that in or screenshot it. And that's what our badges look like so far. We're really excited to see at the end of the course how students end up engaging with this, and we're hoping to share that out at that point when we have more info.
Yeah, and I'll say ideally we'd like to find a integrated badging ecosystem within edX, and I know there's those in development and even working in Open edX. We looked at Badger, and I think also in those early design meetings, we talked about, do we have the tech perfect first, or do we try the badges on a small scale and then let the tech catch up or develop to our use of it? So I think there's other options out there, and BadgeOS allowed us to sort of rapidly build that in this case. And you can find out more about how we did that with what plugins and all that at recipes.dartmouthx.org.
Thank you.
Fantastic. There was a question that came in from Chris Gamrat. Is there an overall badge that represents the themed or stacked badge?
Oh, good question. Should we go back a slide or two? Let's see. Maybe even to the constellation. There we go. So there are 3 badges. Oh, and I should also mention that the Composer, Community, and Opera Patron badges push out to Credly. So those stackable badges are just within the Opera X community. However, those top-level badges push out to Credly, and then you can do whatever you want, pushing them on the Open Badge standard. So we don't have an overall badge. If you earn those 3 badges, you earn a top level one. Part of it was we didn't want to confuse a mega badge with the certificate. So edX already has a certificate, and we didn't want to duplicate or confuse what that certificate and badge might mean. So we kind of kept those things separate.
Excellent. Another quick question, and we'll move on to our next speaker. What are your next steps? Are there plans for using badging in other MOOCs or other official Dartmouth courses?
Well, that's a great question, because just yesterday, several students in Opera X, which is Introduction to Italian Opera, have said, we love this course so much, please produce a couple more courses on French opera and German opera. So we'll see. We're still, catching up on sleep and whatnot from Adam in particular from this MOOC. And, there's definitely interest from the community, and, we'll see if we'll produce other opera MOOCs. And I definitely would see a fit there. For other MOOCs at Dartmouth, it's certainly a possibility.
Yeah, the other thing we're thinking about, one of our big goals was if a student, the mega badge that doesn't exist in this case, could perhaps be that students would become a community TA in future versions of the course. So that's another idea that we're playing with in the future.
And we also are thinking about the life of the course beyond this offering in a 6-week setting. So it goes into a self-paced version. And so thinking about community development, and as Adam mentioned, community TAs, so people who are passionate and practiced in the course and would like to serve as a moderator or a TA, perhaps this can help identify people who are, in that, could be serving that role.
Excellent. Fantastic. We're going to move on to our next speaker, and that is John Foster. And John, I'm going to unmute you here real quick. All right, John.
Okay, let me share my screen, hopefully.
Perfect.
Are we okay? Okay.
We're good.
Thank you, and thanks everybody, and hello. I'm a little bit of a different sort here, as I'm not directly affiliated with a college or a university. So I kind of felt the need to give a little bit of context. So I hope you'll indulge me for a brief minute here. Let me just give you some quick context about who we are and who I am. Basically, NOCTI stands for National Occupational Competency Testing Institute. We're a 501c3, and we were established just about 50 years ago. And basically what we did was we worked in the career and technical education community, assuring that teachers who are coming in through alternative routes in about 25 different states had all aspects of the industry covered, so that if you were a welder, you had all aspects of the welding industry, at your fingertips, and weren't just a specialist in MIG or TIG or whatever the case may be. We quickly progressed to student testing, both of community college level students and secondary completers of technical programs. We moved then into industry pre-employment testing, and then into industry association certification kind of work. As I mentioned, we've been around for almost 50 years, and almost all of our experience has been in technical skill development, with the exception of a little bit of work in foundational skills, or what some folks might call soft skills. Our credentials are built from nationally industry-based standards, in that we work from the Dictionary of Occupational Titles and any non-proprietary standards that we can acquire, and we revise them using a nationally validated process that tries to prevent regional bias in a particular industry. We have lots and lots of collaborations, and a commitment to the career and technical education community. Real quickly, this is our governance kind of structure. Like I said, 50 years. We're a not-for-profit. We're actually owned and operated by 50 states. So most governors in the states have a low-level appointing authority that allows them to appoint somebody known in some states as a career and technical education director. They either come from, like in the state of Minnesota, they come from a higher ed institution. In the state of Massachusetts, they come from a secondary ed. Some cases they're from a bureaucracy. It just depends. But essentially, those are the folks who are on my consortia, and those are the folks who my board is elected from. We also have a for-profit business called Nocti Business Solutions, and essentially what we do is provide pre-employment assessment and certification for industry groups. This is just a quick look at some of our, our partners that we work with. Society of Manufacturing Engineers is one that you might recognize. The Project Management Group, PMIEF, might be one. The MSSC, the Manufacturing Skill Standards folks. I don't know, just a whole bunch of folks that we partner with. So we started about 5 years ago, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago, in that range, and we started to get interested in digital badges because in a technical field, what it's really all about is competencies. And we saw digital badges as a way to recognize competence. And so what we do is we build towards total competence of a particular occupation. Let's say carpentry, for example. So there are many, many different competencies that have to be acquired to build toward, becoming a carpenter, for example. And so we thought, geez, we should be able to badge the entire, endeavor, but we should also be able to badge the individual competencies that somebody finds during their training period. So we started to write a couple papers, and though my name's on these, I didn't write them all. Since I'm the boss, I could take the credit. But we did an article called "The Promise of Digital Badges," and then we did a follow-up called "The Practicality of Digital Badges," which we did about a 5-state sample, about 3,000 kids, all secondary. And we tried to see if there was motivational aspects to digital badges. And like most of you have alluded to, there really was, at least on a subjective research basis, kind of just collecting things from anecdotal surveys and things like that. There was quite an interest in pursuing the digital badge when it's tied to a particular credential or an assessment. People wanted to share it with their friends, with their associates, with their teachers. I mean, that was a really big aha for us, was that when we surveyed some of the students who acquired these badges, one of the biggest populations that they wanted to share back with was the teachers who they'd been with throughout this particular course. And the reason was they were grateful for the skills and the competencies that they acquired during the course. And we thought that was kind of cool. So it was kind of a neat way for a student to say thank you to their instructor, and it was something that we never thought of. Anyway, this is the 2 earlier presenters talked about the platforms that they work from. We have a homegrown platform. It's based on the Mozilla Open Standards, and this is kind of what it looks like. And these are examples of our badges that you might see, and they're tied to the typical metadata and assertions. But you can see also that we can sort them just like you can on the Mozilla Backpack site. I chose to sort mine based on technical and workplace foundations and just kind of fun badges. But we've been doing some interesting work in the last 2 years, I guess, with some of our collaborators. And this is the part that we thought might be interesting to the group as a whole. One of the groups that works in the career and technical education field is an outfit by the name of ACTE. It's the Association for Career and Technical Educators. It represents all levels of education and training, probably about an 8 to 10,000 membership, and somewhere in the vicinity of about 20,000 that receive their magazines and online subscriptions and that kind of thing. Anyway, they have an online curriculum known as the Core Community, and basically what it helps technical instructors do is merge their content with the core curriculum standards that are out there. And if you do that, you get a badge, and we happen to be the folks who deliver the badge for ACTE. And this is a quick snapshot of their metadata, but basically it refers back to the standards that they had to meet, just like most of you do with whatever courses you're working with. And it's tied to URLs, which of course are available 24/7, so that if a particular teacher wanted to share this as a continuing education unit, or if they wanted to get credit with their administrator, or if they wanted to just show the public that they're remaining current in their field, they could post this badge, on a variety of social media sites. And you'll see this is our site, and you'll see a little sharing icon there. And of course, if you hit the sharing icon, you could share that with Mozilla or LinkedIn or Facebook or any of the other social media platforms. Just a quick little bird walk to the NBS site. That's the NOCTI Business Solutions site, just to give you another example of some badging that we're doing. We've been engaged in credit for prior learning for a bit, and we have started to badge the credit for prior learning. So it's another example of utilization of badges for an individual who's basically utilized one of our assessments that isn't necessarily tied to a credential, but has enabled them to capture their content knowledge and convert that to college credit through an organization called the National College Credit Recommendation Service out of Albany. But this is really what I wanted to spend some time on, because it talks about the different kinds of badges that we've been kind of playing with or experimenting with. The other thing this slide does is, if you look on the upper left-hand corner, it shows you how to link your badge to Mozilla or LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or Google+, so that if you have a badge that you want to share, you can click that, and that'll kind of automatically go to that site and give you the directions as to how to share the badge. So as far as categories, we've been playing with some fun stuff, like we did this silly assessment. There's no credential tied to it, about the 80s and about robotics, but it's just a goofy kind of a thing. I already mentioned the public professional development thing we're doing with ACTE, so that's an example of the kind of badge that we've been toying with there. This next one is kind of interesting. This is from the International Sign Association, and that's a fairly, unique kind of group, but it represents everybody from folks who do laser engraving on tombstones, for example, gravestones, all the way up to Vegas Vic, the guy who is run on programmable logic controllers when you enter, Vegas and all that. They're the folks who, do that kind of work as well. So it's all nature of individuals who develop signs. So they wanted to be more visible, and so they talked to us about putting together a badging platform for individuals going through training related to the sign industry and making their association more visible. So it's kind of a neat little thing we're doing for ISA. And by the way, we're doing that for six, maybe seven industry association groups right now. One of them, by the way, is the NIOSH, under the auspices of the Center for Disease Control. That's the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. And that badging system is for middle school students on safety in the classroom and in the workplace. Anyway, another one we've been playing with is within our own company. We're a small company, a not-for-profit, but we do recognize longevity. And so every 5 to 10 years, we give our employees a longevity badge. And it's tied back to the Department of Labor stats in turnover rates. So it actually does have a real basis. It's not just a kind of a giveaway kind of badge. Then we have our college credit badge, which we tie to the National College Credit Recommendation Services recommendation of our assessments. We also have technical industry badges that we provide. Recently, we've started to do our own professional development. So, some of the things that we do are DACM and job and task analysis kind of facilitation. And so when we bring new employees in, we put them through a little training program, and we give our individual employees badges for their own private or individual professional development. And the last one I'll mention, and this one really is tied to the Badge Alliance, but we've also started displaying other folks' badges for for things that they've been recognized with. In this case, the Badge Alliance has awarded us an advocacy badge. So that's a real quick look at some of the things that we're playing with. And I'll just mention this one really quickly because we have a pending project with the I3 folks at the Department of Ed. We haven't received word on this one, but the idea with this badge is to take a look at a population in California and look at the impact of what they call non-cognitive skills on academic achievement. But the key to this one, and the reason I mention it, is because what we're doing is we're actually badging the students for acquisition of things like, things that you would probably classify as soft skills, things like cooperation and persistence and self-presentation and things like that. And I can explain more about that, but just kind of an interesting wrinkle on the whole digital badge aspect. And that's about it. That's my contact information, and I think I'm done. Did I make it?
Yes, you did, and fantastic. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to transition to some questions. We have about 25 minutes total, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So what we're going to do is there have been some questions asked in the chat, and I'm going to facilitate those very quickly. For the speakers, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you all. Actually, go ahead and unmute yourselves if that's okay. John, if you can, release this.
I'm trying.
Great. So, John, I'm going to start with 2 questions that came up. What is the significance of college credit recommendation associated with some of the NOCTI badges? And if you can also talk about it, I'm going to put another question with it. What sort of relationship exists between NOCTI and accrediting agencies, and how do they feel about your badges and college credit?
It's a good question. The National College Credit Recommendation Service was part of the American Council for Education. Actually, it was the same organization. If you dig into the records, they were both part of an organization by the name of Ponzi. And so you can see why they got away from that acronym. But basically what happened is ACE, stayed with the higher ed side, and NCCRS kind of stayed with the more technical side. So what they do is they have a bank of college professors at different universities that evaluate different standards and assessments and curriculum, and award it with some level of rigor, based on what their third-party evaluators think about it. In most of our cases, the badges that are tied to college credit are recommended for anywhere from 3 to 6 college credits, and NCCRS has a list. If you go to their website, just Google National CCRS. Don't use the acronym NCCRS because there's too many organizations with that acronym. But if you go to their site, you can click on your state, and there are roughly 1,500 colleges and universities who have agreed to accept the recommendations. It's still, as you can imagine, it's still up to the individual admissions office as to how they handle that. But what it says is they've agreed to accept these badges, and they've already vetted, our badges, based on their criteria. So it's a third-party evaluation of our, of our work in the technical field.
Fantastic. Okay, Leslie, this question is for you. In your system, do the students need to apply for a badge for your approval, or is it automatically awarded? If it's automatic, what are the trade-offs with student self-directedness and or requiring a reflection?
In our system, no one needs to apply. We specifically design these badges to be part of the course. We did this intentionally because we didn't want the badges to be seen as more work. What that required us to do was to look at all of our curriculum, potentially revise and update or add more rigor to the curriculum. We wanted these students to know that these classes, and that's why we're only badging our professional development classes, are grounded in professional rigor. Again, non-credit classes are traditionally graded as unsatisfactory or satisfactory. So by adding these badges, it was a way to align our courses with learning objectives or learning outcomes, depending on how you see that. If a student successfully completes all the badge tasks, so all the requirements or assignments, then they earn the badge.
Excellent. John, can you go ahead and scroll up at the top of your screen and release the presentation?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Stop sharing.
I don't see it.
It should just say stop sharing.
Yeah.
And while you're working on that, Mike and Adam, the question was asked, why are the badges in the course certificate not related to one another? And was this considered and rejected, or might it be considered in the future?
Yeah, so part of this was we were trying to build support with the faculty member we were working with, and we were thinking incremental might be important with this. He was very open to the idea of doing it this way, but I think he was a little apprehensive of doing something more kind of wide in scope. The other piece of it is also, and maybe Mike can talk a little bit to this, but the edX platform is, the whole badging idea isn't really there or supported. So the certificate that's generated by the platform, or by edX rather, is just based on a cutoff grade based on a grading system that you set up, but there's no real way to create an experience under that might allow for different pathways or things along those lines.
And I think we also didn't want to cause any confusion between a course level badge and the certificate. So edX has their own certificate platform, which Adam mentioned. It may be, and I hope that it's on the open badge standard at some point in the future. We also drew upon course level badging projects we've done here at Dartmouth, and have always been intentional about having, and in those cases, the badges do relate to the activities in the course, but they are not equivalent to the course grade. So where there's a credentialing and assessment system in place, like grades and transcripts, we don't want to duplicate that to cause any confusion or or any resistance, I guess, at this point, because we're sort of stepping on toes.
Excellent. Okay, so this was asked to everybody, so we'll take turns. Please provide an example of criteria that might be used or published to guide the earning of a badge. So maybe some of the more difficult parts of adding that criteria, if you could speak to that.
Well, I can start if no one else is ready. I can just mention that the National College Credit Recommendation Service has established the criteria that we utilize. So we just, in that particular case, we just utilize their criteria, and that's referenced on the URL and the metadata that is utilized for that particular badge.
We utilize various accrediting agencies. So a lot of our classes are accredited by national or international agencies. So in terms of setting up our badges, we have to align to what they're looking for us, as I'm sure a lot of yours are as well. We align our learning objectives based on how the class is set up and then how they crosswalk over to those accrediting bodies. If we don't have an accrediting body, then we have started talking to our workforce, talking to our local Madison area workforce, and what are they looking for out of these classes, because ultimately that's the goal of these badges, is to help promote the individual with the skills that they've learned through us.
Yeah, I guess the short story for ours is we didn't have any sort of accrediting piece over our program. So that really wasn't a consideration for us. And I'm really intrigued by this idea of going to the community, though, because I think in future versions of this course, be interesting to talk to arts organizations and schools and start to think about, well, what are the different, whether they're soft skills or hard skills,
Right.
what are the things that we're looking for out of people involved in our communities, and what are ways that we could show evidence for that and ultimately be able to build off of that. So that would be interesting to definitely look into in the future. We're not quite there yet.
Excellent. John, this question came in for you. Could you talk about the process of how prior learning is assessed for a badge, and do people submit evidence, and who endorses that evidence?
Yeah, that's tied back to the NCCRS recommendation that we had. So basically, we're just using a reverse process. So the example we use all the time, let's say that someone's been deployed over in the Middle East, and they've picked up skills that wasn't really captured on their Dantes credential. Those of you who've been familiar with the military know about the Dantes credential, and it's kind of like a transcript, I guess you could say. But let's say they were, tasked with building an airstrip, and they learned things about, concrete. They learned things about electrical and things like that weren't captured as part of their MOS. They come back to the States after their deployment, and they decide, hey, I want to get a job in construction management, and I want to pursue a degree of some sort in that field. Well, maybe they picked up some things in their deployment about that field. So conceivably, they could take an assessment from us in electrical, in concrete, masonry, carpentry, hydraulics, whatever the case may be, and pick up maybe 6 to 9 credits. It's kind of like a technical CLEP, if you will. And so the idea would be that as the folks at CALE, Center for Advanced Education and Learning, I think, have shown, somebody who starts a program, who matriculates into a program with advanced credits, has a greater tendency to complete. So hopefully that we're giving that person an edge as they pursue, their own college credits.
Interesting. Okay, so at the risk of beautiful chaos, you all have the ability of being at, thank you, a good laugh. You all have the ability to unmute yourselves. You can do so by, in your Zoom screen in the lower left, if you hit unmute, so that you can ask questions in live time of the speakers. And please remute yourself afterward. Surely there have to be some brave souls. Okay, so while you come up with questions, because we really do want to facilitate this open discussion. There was the question posed of whether or not there are any recommendations on how to ensure proper alignment of criteria for earning a badge with national or international standards. So that may extend beyond your badging projects.
We align our badges with national standards in any way that we can, because it gives credibility to the badge itself and to what we're doing here. Our dietary manager program is accredited by the ANFP. So what we do is similar to if you're going through any sort of accrediting for teachers or any other type of body. We align with the standards that they provided on their website. They're actually redoing them right now, so all of our links are broken until they fix that. But within each badge, within the courses that we have, those courses have to be aligned and tied to those standards in order for them to accredit us. So we make sure that in the learning outcomes and then verified by assessment, that those badges and that those different accreditation standards, each one of them is met somewhere within our courses. We call that out within the badge. Within a claim, we can link directly to that specific standard via a URL within the badge. So that is seen, it's extremely transparent and has really helped from an assessment standpoint of making that a really transparent process on our end, on our, when we have to go to our accrediting bodies and as well as our workforce boards that work with us.
Yeah, so like Leslie's system, we also are tied to national standards. I mean, that's essentially what we do. So we typically start from the Dictionary of Occupational Titles and then move to the ONET standards, and then as I mentioned, through the assessments that are tied to credentials, every 3 years we revalidate and repilot test those assessments, and so. All of the criteria, on the badges are tied to national standards that have been, nationally validated and are credible. And we also we incorporate non-proprietary standards whenever possible, and posted online. So, for example, our IT networking badge is not tied directly to the Cisco system, the Cisco networking system, because most of their information is proprietary, but CompTIA, on the other hand, does have public standards out there in networking, and they are accessible. So we incorporate whatever is non-proprietary into the national standards and into the ONET standards as well, and then revalidate on a regular basis.
I have a question. I'd like to ask Leslie and John, and really anybody else who has information about how badge earners are using their badges, or more to the point, how are the badges they might share in a variety of ways being responded to, being evaluated? Are badges known to be opening pathways to their earners?
Well, go ahead.
I was just asking, and are there ways to gather information about this?
Currently, the only way I know to gather information about whether a badge is opening doors is to physically ask the person or to survey the person.
Mm-hmm.
Within our system that we utilize, we can track how many times a person and where a person has shared their badge to,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can also track how many views that badge has received. So we can see the kind of exponential chaos that these badges create, which is really great for our purposes and for that individual badge earner's purposes. That's something that the corporation, the Cleary Corporation that we're working with, is really finding a huge benefit to their company, that social media aspect. As far as students finding ways to utilize these, SHRM, or the Society of Human Resource Management, just endorsed digital badges as a way to credentialize individuals as they're looking for jobs. So these human resource people, who are usually the frontline people interviewing for jobs, are now accepting digital badges as credentials for these individuals. So that just happened. So we're foreseeing that's going to be a huge impact on the workforce skills that we're aiming to achieve.
Thanks.
That's really interesting. I actually hadn't heard that myself. Other questions?
No, neither did I.
They're also offering their own badges because they do human resource training also.
What was the organization?
Along those lines.
SHRM, SHRM, Society for Human Resource Managers.
Thank you.
We had another question. So we had another question come in. Leslie, do you have any?
That was me. I'm not sure my connection is going to be good enough, but I was just wondering along those same lines.
I think the question went out. For the person that was asking the question, if you could put that in the chat. Yeah, Kyle. Yeah, sorry. If you could put that in the chat, we'll make sure that it gets asked. There was the question, Leslie, do you have any web-enabled evidence of the huge development at SHRM?
I'm looking for it. I do. I'm just not sure if I can find it while we're talking.
No problem. Adam, the question was asked, who is involved in assessing the submissions for your OpenEdX MOOC, and how is the assessment organized and funded?
Yeah, so this is one of those things, we weren't sure if we were opening a floodgate or if it was going to be a trickle, but luckily it's been pretty manageable. We've had, between Mike and I, we've been able to take a peek and kind of counsel with one another to figure out if it's getting at what we thought it was supposed to. And that's kind of just the way things were pulled together at the last minute. But yeah, I think in the future we could think of a more creative way of doing that, perhaps with rubrics or things like that would more accurately get at that. But we don't have additional funding or assessment planning for this specifically in our project plan. And part of that was the nature of how last minute it was.
Okay. So another question for Leslie. Kyle Peck wanted to know if you could share a bit more on the evidence of the marketing impact that your badging efforts have had.
Well, one specific case that we had was a cooking class, molecular cooking. There were 10 people enrolled in the class. 8 people earned the badges because 2 of the people did not come to the second day of class. They shared out their badge a total of 7 times. And before our next catalog was even hit the newsstands, we had a full enrollment for that class. We have a waiting list based on the fact that these, quote unquote foodies share with their foodie-like friends and generated huge interest in this class. And we have the same issue with our beer craft brewing, that we have usually waiting lists for those classes as well.
And Kyle is also asking how many are in a full class.
Depends on the class. I think our craft brewing is about 15 to 20. Our molecular cooking depends on the location because they're physically using lab stations. So if we have enough room for them, it could be anywhere from 12 to 15, give or take, because they're at individual cooking stations.
Excellent. As we draw closer to the top of the hour, final questions. I wonder if, just to generate a little bit of conversation, there's been kind of the question about standards, whether we're talking about credit or whether we're talking about interoperability. And, in terms of interoperability, IMS Global and W3C are kind of leading those standards as badges persist in ecosystems. I wonder if, for those that are on the call, might be able to speak more broadly to, professional development as we talk about a worldwide phenomenon in terms of academic credit and what can be accepted across continents.
I'm probably the wrong guy to even speak on this one, but there are within the assessment community standards that are international, and those are the ISO 17024 standards. So I would think that if there were something comparable, in terms of digital badge standard and assessment standard that was accepted like that standard is, there would be some opportunity for sharing of credit internationally.
Hey John, what is ISO? What number was it? ISO 1704?
17024. Yeah.
What's that for?
It deals with assessment, international assessment, credibility, and that sort of thing.
Good.
And so, if at the end of a particular course there was an assessment involved and the assessment was standardized and met those standards, I would think that would provide some sort of a platform.
Okay.
Excellent. And links to those as well as the conversation about SHRM are available in the chat. So if you'd like links to that, go ahead and check out the chat. I'd like to thank you all for participating today. Thank you to our wonderful speakers. Adam, Mike, Leslie, John, thank you very much. This was very informative. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this session and you want more, we'll be leading one in 7 hours from now, friends in Australia. So hope you can join us. Have a great day. This audio recording will be available shortly.
And James, let me just say thank you to you and Gina for doing such a great job organizing this. A big collective hand for James and Gina. And also, if there's anybody out there, I'm looking very, very hard for partners who have contacts with U.S. vocational institutions. I'm looking for people, specifically the initiative at the Department of Education is apparently quite interested in finding people who can help get submissions into the initiative. It's called Equip. It's in Ted Mitchell's office. It's this one where they're interested in using badges to sort of overcome accreditation problems and to make it possible for private boot camp type educators to get access to financial aid. The requirement is a partner to have a community college that is willing to accept that evidence as verified by an external they're not calling it an accreditor, but an external quality entity. If they can, so the bottom line is you have to have a community college who's willing to play, and I am trying and failing to find community colleges who are interested in doing this. But I know that Collective Shift is quite interested in this. We just spoke to Connie Owl about it, and so I'm just reaching out. And I'm DT Hickey at indiana.edu. Feel free to email me if you can connect me. And I want to say thanks to our guests for coming, to Leslie and John, and who was the third one? Adam, of course. So thank you guys for your time. I'm sorry I missed, but James and Gina, once again, thank you so much for your efforts.
Thank you. Hope to see you all in 7 hours.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.